But I will talk about the other colleagues in a few minutes when I show the paper we wrote together. And it's about, yeah, right, like how can we account for some requirements that can guarantee ethical decisions are made by the AI systems. So basically, the motivation is that we have more and more these AI systems, even social technical systems, interfere in our lives and make decisions on our behalf. So the impact of these information systems and specifically of AI systems in human life gets higher and higher. And there are many ethical issues that come into mind, like will they substitute us in our jobs so that we can maybe lose our jobs? What should we do about AI bias? I think many people here might have heard of cases in which the decisions made about I don't know, like let's say the Amazon case, in which they used AI for hiring people. And in the end, they found out that the algorithm was biased towards men and always proposing men to be better candidates than women, you know. And this can happen because of bias in the data itself or how the algorithm is trained, or it can also happen by the algorithm itself. So we have to identify where the problem is as well, right? Then we always hear, even in movies, I guess, who here hasn't seen a science fiction movie, right? That talks about AI going rogue and deciding to, I don't know, exterminate humans as a solution for a problem. We have the issue of AI being used in autonomous weapons. So, shall we allow AI to kill? This is a serious ethical dilemma. And also the simple fact that AI may be imperfect and make mistakes. And these mistakes may affect human life in a very serious way. So, all this make us understand that, okay, all this, there are many works now that target the ethical development of systems, or sorry, or the development of ethical systems. So two sides of the same coin, right? And this come from, these are some examples here, right? There's this framework that we actually reuse in our work that has been the result of the works of a group of very multidisciplinary researchers, right? Some from technology, some from philosophy, and from cognitive science. Uh, Virginia Dignam is a prominent researcher that has been writing about this for a while now. This book is from 2020. Then there are some standards, some methods already applied, but they are very high level, right? So some directions, some guidelines, even from the European Union. More recently, we have, so this is one of these guidelines, right? More recently, we have seen the emergence of regulations like the AI Act, right? And it's the first regulation, like more complete regulation on the topic on how AI should function. And there are many risks identified there that are actually connected to ethics. And all this is very important, but we have to go out of this theoretical debate, and even like from the regulations, which are definitely important, and we need to provide something else, something extra. Because for this debate to be converted into practice, we need to provide concrete methods for the developers of the systems. And in this way, we are aiming at building ethical systems by design, right? And thinking about that, we gathered, so with Glenda Amaral, Giancarlo Guizzardi, and John Milopoulos, and we propose a method that is based on ontologies for engineering ethicality requirements. And this is the topic of this talk today, right? The first thing that we have to understand about the method is that it gives a lot of attention to requirements engineering, which is the first activity in the information systems engineering cycle, right? So we start with requirements, then we have design, implementation, testing, and deployment. This is a very straightforward cycle. There are more complex ones, but I think this is a good representative of a development cycle. And although requirements is the starting point, it also moves, and you have to monitor the requirements in the diverse cycles of this this method here, these phases, right? So it's something that accompanies the system until it goes to operation and moves forward, because we still have to monitor if the requirements are being met, if we have new requirements for systems evolution, and so on. So why do we think that this is important, that requirements is engineering is fundamental? Because this activity is the one responsible for collecting from the stakeholders the needs, right? Their needs, their wants, their preferences regarding the system, and to know which kind of functionalities the system has to needs to have, but also some non-functional requirements that relate to qualities, and so availability, security, and why not ethicality. Okay, so our idea then is to reuse the framework by AI, made by AI for people, right? This group that is also now, it's called the framework AI for people. And they are based, and this framework is based on 5 principles, namely beneficence, non-maleficence, autonomy, justice, and explicability, right? And based on these principles, we want to propose this requirements engineering method that guides the analyst in capturing ethicality requirements. This is our, let's say, method. It comprehends 3 phases. But the most important thing is to focus here on the principles themselves, because that's the ones that we use ontologies to understand. So beneficence is about doing good, promoting well-being, preserving dignity, and sustaining the planet. Non-maleficence is about do no harm, avoid the potentially negative consequences of overusing or misusing AI technologies. Autonomy is about striking a balance between the decision-making power and we retain for ourselves and that which we delegate to artificial agents. And explicability is about making AI decision-making process intelligible and accountable. These are all definitions taken from the AI for People framework. And we are still missing one principle here, is the principle of justice, that our work still doesn't target. So for us, it's a future work. Then we do ontological analysis for all these principles, and we try to, based on UFO and OntoUML, to define their semantics in terms of concepts that are more, let's say, palatable to requirements analysts, right? And to do that, we reuse some existing ontologies, existing core ontologies, and we put them together. We connect their concepts in order to explain what beneficence is, non-maleficence, and so on and so forth. I will go very fast in this part, and I will focus on like how can we understand then beneficence and non-maleficence, right? They are connected because one has to do with doing good and the other one has to do with preventing harm, right? So we connect beneficence with generating value and non-maleficence with preventing risk. And these 2 concepts, they are the core of this cover ontology, the common ontology of value and risk. So we base our definitions of beneficence and non-maleficence requirements on this core ontology. Okay, and what we do is that, okay, there is something called gain event and loss event, and they are related to particular intention of the agents. And we say that the beneficence requirement is the propositional content of the beneficence intention that intends to create a gain event. And a loss event is actually created, trying to prevent by the non-maleficence intention, whose propositional content is a non-maleficence requirement. Explaining this in a more, let's say, visual way, right? We say that the user has an intention to accomplish a goal for which he relies on the system. This intention is adopted by the system, right? With the intention to create then a gain event. And a gain event is the type of event that positively impacts the agent's goals, these ones that the agent relies on the system. This is important because when we trust somebody or we trust a system, we don't trust it for everything. So if I use a particular system to understand what's my prospect for my career, I don't trust the same system to understand what's the weather tomorrow or something like that, right? And the same for people. We trust people with different goals in mind. Okay. Non-maleficence, we start the same way. The user's intention to accomplish a goal for which he relies on the system. The system has the intention to prevent a loss event. And a loss event is a type of event that negatively impacts the agent's goals. Okay? Thinking about a driverless car, right? We can think like, okay, this is an autonomous car that brings the passengers everywhere it wants to go, they want to go. And we have some stakeholders here, not only the passenger itself, but also the pedestrian, the bystander, nearby car. Even the environment can be seen as a stakeholder here, for which we want to improve, or not, at least not to destroy, right? So with this, we create kind of a guideline for our requirement analysts, saying, okay, we must identify, how do you then collect or capture beneficence and non-maleficence requirements? You can identify events, either gain or loss events in your domain. Identify the stakeholders that participate on such events, and then identify requirements to either create a gain event, which will be a beneficence requirement, or prevent a loss event, which is a non-maleficence requirement. Okay, and here we can see some examples. Let me see, I have it bigger here. So the passenger, for instance, wants to arrive on time at a destination, right? This is a positive event, okay, arriving on time at the destination. The principle here is beneficence, and then the ethical requirement can be the car should choose quicker route towards destination. For the bystander, let's say, see the bystander here in the third row. The bystander, one of the events that can happen to the bystander is be splashed if the car passes by a puddle of water. It's a negative, let's say, a loss event, right? So we say that this, the principle that guides the elicitation of requirements is non-maleficence, and then the car should slow down in case there is a puddle of water near a bystander, okay? We can also do this using goal models. The way that we do it for eliciting the requirements or capturing, representing the requirements, we can choose depending on our pre-selection or preference, right? This in blue here with the stars can be directly transformed from the instantiation of the ontology, helping with automation. And finally, I'd like to explain how our method deals with ethical conflict, okay? So suppose here there is the typical trolley problem, right? In which you have a passenger of the car that wants to feel safe. And for that, there is a gain event, that is the driverless car keeps passengers safe, okay? And then the intention, the beneficence intention is related to this. And finally, a requirement that says the car should keep the passenger safe, okay? Suppose now there is a tree in the middle of the way. So what should we do? What should the car do, right? If there is another stakeholder that participates in a possible risk experience. So suppose now a pedestrian is another agent, another stakeholder that participates in the same risk experience. There is a tree that must be dodged by the car somehow, right? And then the car needs to understand what to do, because also the pedestrian wants to be safe, okay? However, suppose that in this case, the car run over the pedestrian is a loss event, right? So if he chooses to run over the pedestrian, he chooses to keep the passenger safe, right? What should he do? So we say that if there are conflicting intentions, or if there is a gain event affecting one stakeholder and a loss event affecting another stakeholder participating in the same risk experience, this characterizes an ethical conflict, okay? And then we have to find a way to deal with this, right? Then this also brings us to a guideline that says for each stakeholder, we should consider possible events, namely risk experience, that meet these stakeholders' requirements, fulfill her intentions, but leads to loss events to each of the remaining stakeholders in the ecosystem, in the system's ecosystem. So if we focus on this, we are able to identify the conflicts, and we are able to come up with requirements, right? So there are several possibilities. In the case of the tree, the car can decide to save the passenger at all situations. It can decide that it will save most people possible. So if there is then two pedestrians, three pedestrians, I don't know, it may decide that it's better to save them because they are in bigger number. It may also decide to give back the wheel, the steering wheel or the control of the car to the passenger, because maybe the human being can see something that the car can't, right? So this is also a possibility. Which requirement should be chosen? Well, this is something that we need to, let's say, kind of have a plug-in together with our methods, depending on the ethical framework that we want to use, right? So the method is good to spot the conflict, but depending on the ethics, maybe utility ethics would decide to save the most people, for instance, right? So one fact is for sure: if we leave this for the owner of the car company, most probably he will decide to save the passenger at all costs, because he wants to keep selling cars, right? And he doesn't want his car to be killing the passengers of his own cars. So this opens the possibility of discussion and even thinking, right? Like, who should decide, right? Okay, I want to finish here. There are a lot more. There are a lot more to be explained, but we don't have the time. Perhaps something that we can give like as takeaway messages is that, okay, we have these systems, AI systems, social technical systems, more and more impacting our lives, and we know that there are several people working in this direction of defining the ethical principles, defining regulations, but we do need more work on developing approaches, and especially requirements engineering approaches for ethicality requirements, right? And we think ontologies may play a big role there. Thank you very much.